Welcome back to Democracy, everybody. Today we're going to be going over all the special weapons, and I'm going to be ranking them versus each of the factions in my own opinion. So let's hop right into this with our very first weapon, which is the MG43 machine gun. This is the very starting special weapon that you get. You get this one just for actually having the game, which is pretty cool. You don't have to buy this one, and this one is very solid. It's also probably the most common weapon that you can find laying on any of the maps. It's particularly common on like any of the city maps. You can find them all over there. And this weapon is very good. For an overall rating, I would say that this one is A tier across the board against everything. This one does 90 damage a shot, has medium armor pen, at least as of the filming of this. There might be changes in the future, we don't know. And you can also swap its rate of fire, which is pretty good. It holds 3 spare magazines, and this doesn't take up your backpack slot, so you could take something else with this. Whatever other backpack you'd like a resupply pack or something. Machine gun is really solid. Against the bugs, it works really well against just about everything short of like Titans and kind of Chargers. You can kill Chargers with this pretty effectively. You can even kill Titans with this if you want to, but it's not necessarily the best for that. Against bots, beats up on any of the medium bots, beats up even on the bigger bots, and even like Hulks you can kind of kill with this pretty quickly if you're allowed to hit them in the back. And against the squids, it's also really good. It pretty much can fight everything on the squid front, because you don't really need anything more than medium armor piercing against them. It works really well against the voteless crowds, the flesh mobs, and like the harvesters as well. Very solid weapon to start out with, and not to really be overlooked. I'm never really disappointed when I find a machine gun just laying around, especially if I don't have a special weapon, then that's a pretty good thing. Next up, we have the anti-material rifle, also a pretty common weapon that you can find, and a weapon that got buffed pretty significantly recently. This one you can unlock at level 1, and it will cost you 5,000 requisition slips, so you can get this one right away. For an overall rating for the anti-material rifle, I would say this one's probably A tier against the bugs, S tier against the bots, and then B tier against the squids. Find this one a little bit awkward against the squids, or just not really necessary against the squids is kind of more the way I feel about this one. This one does 450 damage per shot, which is quite a bit, has heavy armor piercing on it, holds 7 rounds in it. You can shoot this one really fast, although it does have quite a bit of muzzle climb too. This isn't always accurately reflected with the scope though, if you're looking in. So at close range you can spam this one out pretty quick and generally you'll hit. At long range you can kind of do it too, as well as this is the only special weapon that doesn't have like a hip fire reticle for some reason. I don't know why that is. It did just get a huge buff to its armor piercing though, to where it just does more damage towards armored targets, so you can one-shot Hulks with this, which is why it's so good on the bot front. You can also kill basically everything on the bot front really fast. Even like the factory striders, you can shoot their guns off really quickly now. You could do that before with the anti-material rifle, but it's even more effective. On the bug front, this can actually kill Titans now pretty quickly. If you're allowed to spam and hit it in the head, you can kill them very quickly. It's not the best weapon once again. Same thing goes with like Chargers. You can kill Impalers really fast now with this. And you can kill all the medium bugs with one shot from this if you hit them in the head, I believe. I don't think there's any bug that can actually survive that. And this one also doesn't take up your backpack slot, and they actually gave it more ammunition too now. So instead of holding 6 mags, it went up to 8 mags in total, which goes up even higher if you want to take siege ready armor, which is pretty awesome for this. I do really love the anti-material rifle. It's one of my favorite special weapons. It has been since the game came out, and I love that it actually got a buff, since it seemed like they kind of forgot about it for a while, and the last buff it got that I can recall was when they kind of just like fixed the reticle on it to where it was shooting correctly, because before it would shoot like low and to the right, which was a little bit weird. Anyway, moving on to our next weapon, we have the Stalwart machine gun. This one is another cool weapon, and it also got a buff, slight buff in the last patch, not as big as like the anti-material rifle, but it is a welcome addition. This one is the smaller light machine gun that you can run around with. For an overall rating for the Stalwart, I would say this one's probably A tier against the bugs and A tier against the squids, but then probably B tier against the bots. This one's not necessarily my favorite for bots. It's still very solid overall, and I find this one to be a whole lot better if you match it to a primary weapon that's really good in one area. Like the Eruptor or the crossbow work really well with this, since they are explosive weapons. You don't want to be shooting them too close, and then you might need to rely on your secondary, or you could rely on this, which is basically the same thing as like a Liberator assault rifle, but instead of it holding 30 rounds, 45 rounds, however many rounds your Liberator holds, this one holds 250 rounds. And it also has a higher rate of fire, and it has pretty much no recoil. It is a very good gun for crowd control. This one does 90 damage a shot, has light armor pen, holds a lot of rounds in it, and has a really high rate of fire at up to 1150. It's really good for any of the small and medium enemies on pretty much any front, with the exception of kind of the bots. It can be a little bit rough there because the medium bots can sometimes soak up damage. Unless you're hitting them right in the head, then you can kill them really fast, or if you hit them like in the backpack, you can kill them really quick there. You could take out like Hulks with this, because if you hit them in the back, that's unarmored, but you can't really shoot like tanks with this because you need at least medium armor piercing for that. Same thing goes with like the gunships that are flying around, where you could shoot those out of the air with like the anti-material rifle or the standard machine gun. You can't really do that here, and I don't find it to be as necessary because usually you're not getting swarmed by bots. If you are, then this can be really good for taking out berserkers and stuff, but I find it to be better against the other factions where it can mow them down really fast. It's really good on the squid front for mowing down like the voteless and for also mowing down the flesh mobs. This kills them pretty fast. Our next special weapon is the expendable anti-tank rounds, or the EATs. These ones are really cool. I've always loved these things. They have a shorter cooldown than any of the other special weapons at only 70 seconds. That can be reduced even further. This one's available at level 3 and will cost you 3,000 requisition slips. The EATs are fantastic options to be throwing on any sort of build as an extra option. If you got a 4th slot for your stratagems and you don't know what to take, EATs are pretty much always going to be a really good option. For an overall rating, I would say this one's probably S tier against the bots and S tier against the bugs, but then B tier versus the squids. Usually I don't find that I really need that many explosives for the squids, because it usually doesn't do a whole lot to them. Like, yeah, you can one-shot harvesters with this, but that's about the only thing that you're really one-shotting that really matters, because you can't really one-shot the flesh mobs with this. They'll still be able to tank through it, although it will hurt them significantly, so that's not to say it's bad against them. And yeah, it'll one-shot like the Overseers, but you don't really need to be using the EATs on them. Your primary or secondary weapon should be working just fine. This does 2,000 damage from the actual projectile, and then an additional 150 damage from the explosion. This one does have anti-tank armor on it, which makes it really good. It's particularly good on the bug and the squid front, because you can one-shot Titans, you can one-shot Chargers with this, you can one-shot Impalers with it. It's really nice there. You can also one-shot like Hulks or tanks and stuff like that, and generally speaking, you're fighting more things on those front that anti-tank armor is kind of better against than them. I really like combining this with another explosive weapon though, like taking this with the Recoilless rifle, taking this with the Quazar cannon. Those are really good options since you can shoot like an EAT, swap to your Recoilless, shoot that, swap to another EAT, shoot that, swap back to your Recoilless, and then reload it. And that usually takes care of a lot of problems, since you can kill most enemies with this. Next up is the Recoilless rifle, a really strong weapon stratagem, and one that I'd recommend for most new players to grab right away. You can get this one at level 5, it'll cost you 6,000 requisition slips, and this thing's pretty crazy. This one's basically the same as an EAT, it actually can do more damage than an EAT, which is nice. But you can also reload this, and you can also reload cancel this, and you could also have somebody else taking this and then reload it for you if you want to link up that way. Really solid weapon. It does take up your backpack slot though, where EATs don't. None of the weapons we talked about previously do, so this one is our first backpack related weapon. Be sure to grab that too if you're brand new to this. Go on the other side of the pod and then pick it up from there, because I have seen newer players grab this, run up, shoot it once, and then not take their backpack and just wander off, and you kind of need the backpack for it, otherwise this is just a worse EAT. Recoilless rifle though, for an overall rating, I would say is S tier versus the bugs, S tier versus the bots, and then A tier versus the squids. I still don't think that you really need this one versus the squids. It is a little bit better because you could swap it to like the high explosive rounds and then blow up like the flesh mobs a little bit easier, or blow up the voteless crowds a little bit easier. It's also nice that it can one-shot the harvesters, but I don't really find that super necessary either. You just don't usually need a whole lot of like big explosive weapons for the squids to take them out quickly, I find. On the bug and the bot front though, I do find this one to be really good. Particularly against bots, it's very powerful. You can knock out basically anything with this. Even the factory striders you can kill fairly fast with this. And it does have very long range too if you just want to be sniping off stuff. Same thing kind of goes for the bugs. You can pick off the Titans, you can pick off Chargers really easily with this. It's just a very solid weapon. Our next support weapon is the Flamethrower. This one you can find around the maps too. This one doesn't take up your backpack slot. And this one used to be pretty strong at one point, at least against the bugs. It's kind of fallen off a decent amount in my opinion though. They did buff it in the last patch, giving it more ammo and giving it kind of a slower burn time. Well, I mean, it uses up fuel slower than it did previously. But they did kind of nerf fire in the last patch too, which is a little bit strange. So like the Flamethrower is in kind of a weird spot in my opinion. It's not bad. It's mostly there for crowd control though. It's not really great for like the anti-tank ability that it had before, or at least killing heavy enemies like it did before. For an overall rating for the Flamethrower, I would say this one's still probably A tier against the bugs. It's really good for the crowd control. B tier versus the squids, and then D tier versus the bots. I don't like the Flamethrower against the bots. You can kill certain bots with this, like tanks and Hulks if you really want to, but there's just so many easier ways to do that. You could take EATs, you could take Recoilless, you could take Quazar, you could take Epoch. Like there's just so many ways to kill those things fast. Whereas like the Flamethrower doesn't really kill any of them quickly. It can kill like the bots pretty quick, especially the medium bots, and Berserkers it's actually not bad for burning, but it's just kind of awkward to get in range of the bots with the Flamethrower in general, and it's not really my go-to weapon for that. Against the bugs, this is a lot easier because you can just burn them as they start spawning up out of the ground. You can cover the whole area and just kill all the small ones pretty quickly with that. It still doesn't kill the big ones super fast. Like, you can kill Titans with this, you can kill Chargers with it, but I prefer other weapons for doing that. This one does kill flesh mobs really fast, and it kills the voteless crowds pretty quick, but it's very awkward to use against most other things. Like, yeah, Overseers, you can kind of do that, but sometimes they'll just run through the fire and smack you on the ground. That's not way great. And like, you don't want to get that close with Harvesters because you're probably wearing like fireproof armor, so they can't just zap you and kill you. Our next special weapon is the Autocannon, which also got a pretty big buff in the last patch. They just gave it way more damage than it did previously, which is pretty cool. Autocannon is available at level 10 and will cost you 7,000 requisition slips, and this one does both projectile damage and explosive damage, as well as it has heavy armor pen. For an overall rating for the Autocannon, I would say this one's probably S tier against the bugs and the squids right now, and then A tier against the bots. It's still quite good against the bots too, not as much as some other weapons. Like, I do like the anti-material rifle more than this. This one also takes up your backpack slot, but you do get a whole lot of rounds with this, and every time you get a resupply you get more rounds with it too, which is very nice. This one does 325 damage on the projectile hit and then 150 damage on the explosion. This one can be swapped between the A-fit rounds, which are better for like anti-tank, anti-armor. If you swap it to the flak rounds though, that's more for crowd control, and it's a whole lot better against crowds, and this is a very good crowd weapon. That can even hurt some of the tank-like enemies like Chargers. It's not bad on if you're hitting them in the back and causing this to kind of splinter out and hit other enemies. So that's really good. Holds 10 rounds in it, has a pretty high rate of fire too, and then you can also reload this with stripper clips every 5 rounds. So usually it's best to keep this thing topped off, because otherwise the reload speed is kind of longer, and you do have to stop to reload this one. Up next we got the heavy machine gun. This one is pretty awesome. This one's available at level 12 and will cost you 6,000 requisition slips. This one has the most damage out of any of the machine guns right now, as well as it has the best armor piercing with heavy armor piercing, but it does have the slowest rate of fire out of them. Even though once you turn its rate of fire all the way up, it still has a decent amount of rate of fire, and the DPS is really good from this. For a rating for the heavy machine gun, I would say this one's probably like A tier against the bugs, A tier against the bots, and then S tier against the squids. This one is really good against the squids because it can bully around pretty much everything. Like, you can kill Harvesters very fast with this, you can kill flesh mobs really quick with it, you can kill Overseers very fast, or voteless swarms. It's really good for all of them. Against the bots, it's pretty good against most of them. Like, you can shoot tanks and kill this pretty quickly, at least if you're allowed to hit the back part, you can kill them fast. Against Hulks, you can actually mow them down pretty quick too, which is nice. And then any of the medium and small bots you can. The bigger bots, this one doesn't really do the most too, like the Factory Strider. You can shoot the guns off of it, which is nice, and you can hurt it with this, but it's not going to kill it as quickly as other weapons. On the bug front, kind of a similar deal. It clears through crowds fairly quickly, but it can run through bullets pretty fast since this one only holds 100 rounds as opposed to the other machine guns holding even more. It does kill Chargers really quick, and you can kill Titans with this, although it doesn't kill them the fastest either. It also only holds 2 mags though, so this one does benefit more from like the Siege Ready armors. That does help it to where it gets a 3rd mag. Next up is the Airburster Rocket Launcher. This one is super fun. This is one of my favorite weapon stratagems just because it's so silly. It used to be a friendly fire machine too when it first came out. This one's available at level 15 and will cost you 8,000 requisition slips. This one also takes up your backpack slot, and it's also one of the weapons that you gotta stop to reload, similar to the Recoilless. For an overall rating for the Airbursters, I would say this one is probably B tier against the bugs, C tier against the bots, and then like A tier against the squids. I think this one is best against the squids. Even though against all of the factions it can be good, you just need to have the range to do it, because you can't shoot this one close. It will likely kill you. If you have fortified armor, then that's a little bit of a different story. You can potentially tank through it then. Not if it all explodes on you at the same time. You can also swap the projectiles on this one too, whether you want the cluster mines or the air burst rounds that it has. This one covers a really big area with explosives, and it can do a lot of damage. It's really good for crowd control. You can kill a lot of things with this, which is why it can be really good against the bugs. But if they swarm you, which the bugs do like to swarm a lot, this one is really awkward to use. It can one-shot Titans though if you shoot it underneath them, and you get kind of lucky with the spread. Sometimes I've had it to where the Titans have still been able to survive. Usually not too long after that, but there has been instances where they didn't die instantly. On the bot front, this one's actually pretty decent against the medium bots. You can kill them really well, but it doesn't do very well against the big bots like Hulks and stuff. generally speaking, it's not going to do a whole lot to them. Sometimes it'll kill them. And against the squids, this one's really good. You can one-shot flesh mobs with it. You can one-shot like crowds of voteless with it. So that's really nice. You can kill overseers with this as well. And it can hurt the harvesters too, but once again, it's probably not going to one-shot them. Up next, we've got the Commando. This one is kind of similar to the EATs, where this one also has a shorter cooldown than regular weapons, where this one has 120 seconds. It's not as fast as EATs, and honestly, I don't really like them as much as EATs, but it is a fun weapon regardless. For an overall rating for the Commando, I would say this one's probably like B tier against the bugs, B tier against the bots, and then C tier against the squids. Again, I always find myself comparing this one to the EATs since they feel so similar. This one is really cool where they have guided missiles. You can swap those on or off. If the guided missile is on, you'll see the laser out of the gun, and then it's just you aim the gun and the missile will follow that laser. It's pretty much half the damage of an EAT, but you do get 4 shots with this, which can still be pretty good. That can still kill quite a few things. And it's kind of fun to take this with EATs because you're using them kind of for the same job, but I do kind of like the one-shots of the EATs more so than this. This can be awkward in certain situations where I have to hit like a charger twice, or I have to hit a Titan twice in the head. And if I miss those, then that's not really great. I'm going to end up using more shots then. But if you're just spamming this out and spamming out the EATs, like I really like taking both of these, like if we're going on the Hive Lord missions, because you can do a decent amount of damage to them with this. It's still a pretty good weapon, but I still find it a little bit awkward for some reason. I'm not entirely certain why. Up next, we got the Railgun. The Railgun is available at level 20 and will cost you 10,000 requisition slips. This one costs you quite a bit. For an overall rating for the Railgun, I would say this one is probably B tier against the bugs, S tier against the bots, and then C tier against the squids. On the bug front, this one can be pretty good. You can one-shot a lot of the medium bugs with this. You can actually one-shot all of them with it. You can kill Titans and you can kill Chargers with this. I personally don't like using it for that role. It takes a little bit longer, and I'd rather have like a dedicated weapon for doing that, but if you need to, you absolutely can, and you can find railguns just laying around on maps, which is kind of nice. On the bot front, this one does really excel since it can one-shot any of the medium bots, and it can one-shot like Hulks really easily. You can kill tanks with this, you can shoot the guns off of like a factory strider with this, as well as you can kill the war striders, the grenade bots, pretty fast too, if you just keep hitting it in the weak spots. So railgun is pretty good in that regard. It's especially good if you take like the supply backpack, and if you swap this one to the unstable mode. The unstable mode makes it so the gun can explode, and that can kill you if you don't have enough health. If you're wearing like fortified armor, I don't think this one can kill you if you're at full health, regardless of which level of armor you're wearing. And if you have like heavy fortified armor with health booster, it doesn't do that much damage to you if it explodes. It's just you lose your gun then, so that kind of sucks. Unlike the squid front, this one's still okay. It can kill like the harvesters and the overseers fairly well, but I find that it's kind of awkward against like the voteless swarm. You're not going to use it against them probably, and against like the flesh mobs, it doesn't really kill them all that fast either. So that's why I'd put it a little bit lower against them. Next up, we have the Spear. This one is also available at level 20, and this one will cost you 9,000 requisition slips. This one comes with a backpack, and this is an auto lock-on launcher, which has gotten better over time since they made it actually lock onto stuff more efficiently. And at one point in time, this was like one of the most frustrating weapons to use because it just refused to lock onto anything, or it would lock onto an enemy that you don't really want it to. You also need to lock onto something with this in order to shoot it, which means this one does get better on the higher difficulties, and it's kind of worse on the lower difficulties because there's less things to lock onto. For a rating for the Spear, I would say this one's probably like C tier against the bugs, with the exception of maybe on like the Hive Lord planets, because this one can kill dragons pretty fast, or I guess any planet that dragons show up on. It did get better thanks to that, in which case I'd probably bump it up to like B or A tier then. Just for an anti-dragon weapon. A tier against the bots though, this one is pretty good there, and it can lock onto the factories, which is fantastic. And this one I would say is probably like D tier against the squids. It is really awkward against the squids. I don't like it there. On the bug front, you can kill Titans with this, and again, it is pretty decent for anti-dragon weapons, but sometimes it misses the Titans, or sometimes it just hits them in an awkward spot to where it doesn't do that much damage, and I'd rather have like the Recoilless, the Quazar, or like EATs in the same situation. On the bot front, I would say this one is probably where it's the best, because this can kill Factory Striders pretty fast. You can one-shot Hulks, you can one-shot the War Striders, you can one-shot factories from quite a ways away, as well as like the gun turrets. It's really good there. And then on the squids, this one is just super awkward, because it can really only lock onto a few enemies, where it's like harvesters, and half the time it misses the harvesters just because they're so weirdly shaped. And like against the ships that the Illuminate have, it's really not that great there either, since you still have to knock off their shield and then shoot it with this. And even then, sometimes it doesn't blow up the ship depending on where it hit, which is weird. If it goes in like where it's supposed to, then you can kill them pretty quickly. But I would still find it easier to use like a gas strike or like the precision strike or like recoilless rifle to kind of do the same sort of job. So really awkward there. I don't really like the spear against them. Up next we have the Wasp launcher. This one came with the Killzone collab, and this one is really interesting. This one also takes up your backpack slot. The spear does too. That was another kind of problem with it, is that you only get 3 shots with the spear, not counting the one that's in it, as opposed to like recoilless that has like 5 rounds in it, and they basically do the same damage. So yeah, I would rather take that. Either way, Wasp Launcher also takes canisters that have missiles in them that go and seek enemies. This one also needs to lock on, but this one doesn't need to lock on to as many big enemies. This one can lock on to pretty much any enemy in the game. And the Wasp Launcher is actually pretty decent. It's also very fun to be using. For a rating for the Wasp, I would say this one's probably like A tier against the bugs, B tier against the bots, and then like S tier against the squids. It's really good against the squids. You can just knock the overseers out of the air really quickly. You can kill harvesters really fast with this. You can kill flesh mobs really quick with it. This one also has 2 different fire modes, where you have the lock on where it'll shoot the missiles out and just hopefully hit. This one does get worse on like jungle planets. I will say that on jungle planets, this one I would knock down a little bit because the trees can be really annoying. Same thing can kind of happen in the city maps too, depending on the area. So it might be worse depending on the environment. The other option that it has is an artillery mode where you can launch a round out and then it will air burst above the enemies. This one can be kind of cool for the crowd control. It's definitely cool looking, even though I think the lock-on mode is kind of better than it. Our next weapon is the Grenade Launcher. Grenade Launcher is available at level 5 and costs 6,000 requisition slips. You can also find this one on maps fairly regularly. It's not as common as some of the other weapons, but you can still find them. For an overall rating for the Grenade Launcher, I would say this one's probably A tier against the bugs, C tier against the bots, and then like B tier against the squids. Grenade Launcher can be good, and it really depends on what you're really trying to do with this. I find it best on like bug missions, specifically on blitz missions, or just missions where you want to clear up the bug tunnels the fastest. This one is really good for the crowd control since it has explosive damage with medium armor pen on it, and you can shoot this one out really quick. You do kind of have to worry about the grenades bouncing back and hitting you. That's happened to me plenty of times. On the bot front, it's still pretty good against like the medium bots, especially the ones with the shields, because you can kind of just bully them with this. But that's kind of it. It's still okay for like knocking out factories and stuff, but it doesn't do very much towards the big bots, with the exception of like the flying hulks. You can actually kill them with this because the splash damage also affects their backpack and can kill it really quickly. And then on the squid front, this one's really good for taking out like the voteless swarms, and it's really good for taking out flesh mobs, as well as it can take out overseers. You could use this to kill harvesters too, but I don't find it to be the best there. Our next weapon, also available at level 5, is the laser cannon, and the laser cannon is pretty cool. I do like the laser cannon quite a bit. This one, you just hold on a target until it melts. You can also light it on fire if it holds on to it for so long. For an overall rating, I would say it's probably A tier against the bugs and A tier against the squids, but probably like S tier against the bots. It's really good for taking out bots' weak spots, because you can kill all the medium bots really fast with this one, and even big bots like hulks you can kill with this fairly quickly too. It also doesn't take up your backpack slot, which is nice. Same thing goes with the grenade launcher we just talked about. On the bug front, this one can kill basically all the bugs. It can just be kind of awkward if you do end up getting swarmed with this, but you can be attacking them from a distance for quite a while, and it's really good if you want to combine it with like a shotgun, which is also really good against the bugs. And then against the squids, it's also very nice for taking out the voteless hordes, good for overseers. You can take out the harvesters with this, and it does kill flesh mobs pretty fast too. So like laser cannon is just very nice. Oh, it also kills stingrays really quickly too. If you just hold it on them, it's very easy to take out stingrays with this weapon. Next weapon is the arc thrower, another weapon that you can find on the maps pretty frequently. This one is unlocked at level 15, and this one is an electricity weapon. It also costs 7,000 requisition slips. This weapon is kind of an awkward weapon for me. Personally, I don't use it very often, but I'm never really disappointed when I find it and I don't have a special weapon. It's fine then, mostly because it has infinite ammo. That's another really big bonus of this. This one I would say for a rating is probably like B tier across the board. It's pretty decent for the crowd control, and it can kill big things, but it doesn't really do either of those jobs amazing. This one does do 250 damage with the arc, as well as the arc can bounce to multiple things, which is also a little bit dangerous for teammates. And it does have anti-tank armor on it. And since you can kind of stun lock stuff to death with it, you can kill like chargers and hulks pretty easily, especially if it's just a one-on-one fight. If it's a one-on-one fight, the arc thrower is really good. It's just in certain situations that's not always going to be the case, because you could keep shooting like a Hulk and kind of lock it down, but then other bots could be flanking you or shooting at you from a distance. It's kind of the same thing with like the bugs. You can lock down a charger, but if there's multiple chargers, you're still going to kind of have to circle around and sort of dodge them while you're still zapping the same one. This one also has a faster zap too if you, well, after the first shot. You have to fully charge it on the first shot, but then once you hear the sound on every other shot after that for each charge, you can just let it go. So it does have a slightly faster rate of fire if you do it that way. Next up, we've got the Quazar Cannon. Quazar Cannon is available at level 18 and costs 7,500 requisition slips, and this one is very good. This one is pretty much like a rechargeable EAT, or a rechargeable recoilless rifle round in some ways. This one, for an overall rating, I would say is S tier versus the bots and versus the bugs, and then probably like B tier versus the squids. It's still okay against the squids, you can kill like flesh mobs with it, but it's another one of those cases where it's like you don't really need that much explosive weapons against them. This one's a pretty good option though if you want to take it. So the way this one works is that you have to charge it all the way up and then you can shoot it. Once you do that, it will just fire out a round that goes completely straight. You don't need to account for drop at all with this weapon, and it does do really high damage. It has anti-tank armor on it. After that though, it does go on cooldown, and then you have to wait for it to completely stop overheating before you can charge it up and shoot it again. This one's really good though. You can one-shot like Chargers and Titans with it, which makes it fantastic for the bug missions. It also doesn't take up your backpack slot, so if you want to take this with like the shield generator, that's a really strong combination, especially with light armor. Against the bots, this one's really good too, because you can one-shot Hulks, you can one-shot tanks, you can beat up on like the Factory Strider with it. So a very cool weapon, and a really solid weapon, honestly, to be taking. It's also really fun to take this with EATs, because you can, once again, like, shoot this one out, swap to an EAT, shoot this, swap to your other EAT, shoot that, swap back to the Quazar Cannon, shoot it again. So you could potentially take out like 4 threats, one after the other that way. And that's really good if you need to take out like 4 Chargers or 4 Titans or 4 dropships or something like that. And now we move on to all the war bonds slash other special weapons, because at least the last 2 are just weapons you can find on the map. Either way, first one up, we have the Sterilizer. This one will cost you 85 requisition slips. This one comes with the poison war bond. And this one is weird. This one is a really awkward weapon that I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't find it to be all that useful. Most of the time, I'm going to be taking on like a poison build, and then like the other poison stuff's kind of working better than this. This is basically like the Flamethrower. For an overall rating for the Sterilizer, I would say this one's probably like B tier against the bugs and B tier against the squids, and then like D tier against the bots. It's really not that great against the bots. It feels really awkward in that role. And it's mostly just because I'm taking like a full poison loadout most of the time with this, and the poison guard dog kind of works better than this. So if you have a backpack slot, which this one doesn't take up, I usually end up going with that over like the Sterilizer. The main benefit from this is like confusing enemies, although they can still attack you, because sometimes enemies will just attack wildly once they are confused, or be after you and then get confused and still be kind of near you as they're just swinging around. This does technically have like anti-tank armor on it, so it can confuse quite a few things, and it is definitely best on like the bug and the squid front. But like I said, in like a full poison loadout, which is usually what I'm taking with this, I don't find this to be as impactful as like the gas guard dog, or as impactful as like the gas grenade or the gas strike. Those are all kind of better options than this. You don't really need to be taking poison resistant armor with this though. Like, it's kind of nice if you do that with the Flamethrower for fire resistance, but the gas probably isn't going to be killing you. Up next, we have the One True Flag. This one came in the Masters of Ceremony War Bond. This one will cost you 110 medals to use, and this one is probably the worst of the weapon stratagems, at least as a weapon. If you're taking this, you're taking it for style points, and I can respect that. For an overall weapon rating though, I would say this one's D tier across the board. It is the exact same stats as the Stun Lance, but this one takes up your special weapon slot, which is a whole lot more valuable than like your secondary slot is. This has the same reach, it can stun enemies, does the same damage, has medium armor pen on it. That is kind of cool. It doesn't run out of ammo, so you can stab stuff, and you can stab this into the ground. You can even potentially stab this into guard dogs too, which is kind of funny. There's not too much to say about the One True Flag. Like, peak physique does make it better, but if you are taking the One True Flag, you're taking it because it's cool and because you can like wave it around and stuff and stick it in the ground. You're doing it for that reason. I do kind of wish they would buff this one though and give it like a morale boost. One thing that I thought would be really cool with this one is just make it so that everybody either holding onto the flag or in the immediate area of the flag, like 50 meters or however long you want to make it, has Democracy Protects on them, because, you know, you're putting the faith in the flag. I think that would be a really cool buff, and it would make it so You could potentially stack Democracy Protects with the medium armors, and it might make it so like light armors are even better, especially if you can stick this in the ground and teammates just stay around it. I don't know how that buff would really be implemented, but I would really like to see it with this weapon. Up next, we've got the Deescalator. This one got buffed recently too. This one comes in the Force of Law War bond and will cost you 85 medals. This one is an electric grenade launcher. It can't close up things like the regular grenade launcher can though, so that does make it a little bit weaker if you want to be doing that, but it is better for the crowd control because the lightning can arc across more enemies. It also seems to have a bigger explosion radius than the regular grenades. I'm not sure if that's true. That might just be a visual thing. But the Deescalator is pretty cool, as well as it can stun enemies too. Not as effectively as it used to be when it was kind of bugged and then scaled with however many people were in the lobby. For an overall rating for the Deescalator, I would say A tier against the bugs and A tier against the squids, and then like B tier against the bots. This one's really good for taking out the small and the medium enemies. It can still take out big enemies. Like, you can kill harvesters with this, you can kill titans with this if you would like. It's not the worst weapon in the world. You do have to be careful though, because it is an electricity weapon, so it can bounce back and hit you, or it can hit teammates if they're too close when you're spamming this out. Because most of the time I do just kind of mag dump this whole thing at something, and hopefully kill everything in the area. Next weapon is the Epoch, which the Epoch got a huge buff with the last patch to where it got more damage. It also doesn't have the accuracy bug that it did when it first came out. That got fixed earlier, and it does feel really good. This is basically like a bigger version of the Purifier, where you can charge it up and deal more damage. It also has a bigger window of being able to shoot this, where it didn't before, where it could just overheat and kill you really fast. It can still do that. You can't really survive this unless you have Democracy Protects. This one's got 3 shots and it's got anti-tank armor. For an overall rating for the Epoch, I would probably say this one's A tier across the board. It's very good right now. It also doesn't take up your backpack slot. Big bonus there. It can kill like pretty much all the bugs pretty fast. It's quite good against the Hive Lord right now too, which is nice. Good against all the big bugs. But it is kind of awkward to be using on the bugs simply because they can charge you and potentially, you know, smack you. And if you fire it off, that kind of sucks. Or if you hit something that gets too close, it's probably going to splash and kill you. Not really the best there. Against the bots, it's a little bit easier to be using, but doesn't kill as many of the big bots as effectively as some of the other weapons. Like, I'd still rather have like Recoilless Rifle or Quazar for the same sort of job. But it can still do the job, which is nice. It also kind of has limited range with the explosion, so it's a little bit harder to hit like gunships with this one as opposed to like those other options. And against squids, it's also pretty good, where this one can beat up on harvesters and flesh mobs in particular, and you can splash this to multiple enemies in there. Overall, it's a very solid weapon now, and it's actually a really fun weapon. I do like this weapon a lot now. Next up, we got the Speargun. This might be my favorite special weapon in the game. I have a lot of favorites, but this one in particular really spoke to me when it first came out. This one comes in the Dust Devils War Bond. You're going to need to have 85 medals to unlock it there. And this weapon has anti-tank armor on it, and it also has a piercing damage as well as an explosion damage. So you can pierce through enemies, and then this one can also explode, and it deals demo damage too, so you can actually close up tunnels and bot factories and stuff with it. It can one-shot Hulks if you hit them in the eye with it, which is really nice, and it leaves behind a poison cloud too. For an overall rating for this weapon, I would say this one's probably S tier versus the bugs and versus the bots, and then probably like B tier versus the squids. I've always found it kind of awkward against the squids. Like, it doesn't really kill flesh mobs that quickly. You can one-shot like overseers with it, but it feels kind of like the railgun in that regard then. And it's kind of the same thing against like harvesters. You can kill them with this. This also has a lot of stagger on anything that you hit. So you can like stagger a charger out of its charge. You can stagger a titan out of its vomit, or like it's stomping around, which is really nice. The poison on it does confuse enemies, which is really good, especially if you just want to be using this for crowd control. It does have piercing in the ground too, so against the burrowing bugs, it can kill them pretty fast. The Speargun also doesn't take up your backpack slot. It doesn't have the most rounds though. You do go through rounds pretty fast with the Speargun, so like taking the resupply backpack with this is really nice. I also really like it with the warp pack, and to use it kind of like the grenade launcher, where you can just kind of blink around and just keep shooting like the bug tunnels. It's really good there. Very fun weapon, one of my absolute favorites that they've added. Then we've got the expendable napalm rounds, or the neats. And these ones are very fun. These ones have a longer cooldown than the regular EATs, but they do have fire on them too. This one's actually double the cooldown at 140 seconds. This one also comes with the Dust Devils War Bond, and it's a very fun weapon to be using. This one kind of has 2 different types of damage, where it has the fire damage and the damage over time from the fire, but it also has fragmentation round damage, which is pretty good. Fragmentation rounds are a little bit hit or miss a lot of the time. For an overall rating for this, I would say this one's probably S tier against the bugs and A tier against the squids, and then like C tier against the bots. Sadly, I don't think this one's really all that great against the bots. It tends not to kill the big bots as efficiently as like EATs or Recoilless or something like that. Those are sort of better for it. It can still hurt them though. And since it has a short cooldown, it's not terrible to be taking on them. It's just I think those other options are kind of better. On bugs, this one's really good. It can cut off entire areas thanks to the fire. You can one-shot dragons with this too. That was actually my first experience ever using this thing. I immediately called it down, shot a dragon, and it died instantly from this. That's not 100% guaranteed though, because the fragmentation rounds do need to actually hit it. And like the fire over time in particular is nice against those enemies. It's also really strong against like the flesh mobs from the Illuminate front, and it's really good against the voteless crowd since it puts the fire down. But again, not always necessary to be taking, just kind of a fun option there. And then our last Dust Devil's weapon, since that one got 3, is the Solo Silo, which this one got a really big buff in the last patch. It made it substantially better. Before it was kind of always an awkward option. Now it's not as awkward. Still can be a little bit, but it's very powerful. For an overall rating for the Silo, I would say this was probably A tier against the bugs, S tier against the bots, and then like B tier against the squids. I don't find myself using it as much against the squids, although it is still really fun to take it on blitz missions and just knock out multiple ships with this, or send it across the map directly at like the monolith there and just blow up everything, or it's not the monolith, the other one that scrambles your stratagems. It's really good for that, and sometimes it can just knock that objective out immediately. It can also knock out the Illuminate ships immediately. This one does have anti-tank armor on it, and it does do a ton of damage when it actually hits, as well as it has a pretty big explosion radius too. You do have to pick up the pistol that it comes with and then use that as a sighting system. You can just click it and then immediately toss it away if you'd like. You don't need to hold this onto a target, but you can if you want to guide the missile directly where it's going to land. Very fun thing. The big buff that it got in the last patch was making it so it has more item HP, so it doesn't break as quick as it used to, because before it would break from like one hit from anything. And it also doesn't count as a turret now, which is really good, because that was a really big problem where enemies would rush it and try to kill it as quickly as possible, which made it extremely awkward to use this. Now that's not the case. They will not attack it, at least intentionally. If they're doing like AoE attacks like a Titan's Breath or something like that, it can still hit it and it can still kill it, so you do have to be wary of that. But if you call this in a fairly like secluded location, then grab it and take it somewhere, it's pretty good. It can also knock you down too, so be careful of that when you launch it, that you are further away from it than you might think, because otherwise, if you want to guide it all the way in, you might just knock yourself down and it'll just go wherever you were when you first clicked the button. Oh, it can also take out Factory Striders too with one shot. That's really good as well. And then our last two special weapons are the civilian ones that you can only find on maps. So first up, we have the break action double barrel shotgun. A very cool weapon, but sadly a pretty bad weapon. This one I would say is probably D tier across the board. It is worse than most other weapon stratagems, and it's not even necessarily better than most of the shotguns. So this one does do the second most damage now. It used to have the most damage, where it does 585 damage per shot from this. The Halo shotgun does do a little bit more than this though, so you could go with that one if you want to hit even harder. And it does only hold 2 rounds, as well as it has light armor pen. The rate of fire from this is pretty decent, and it does have a secondary mode to where you can swap it to fire out both barrels rather than just firing out one barrel at a time. It still has the knockback of something like the Punisher, so that is good, but I do find something like the Punisher to be better than like the break action shotgun, since that's a pump action shotgun that still does pretty much the same sort of damage, at least for all the purposes I'd want a shotgun to do. But then I get 16 shots with it as opposed to 2. And you also don't get a whole lot of total rounds with this either. It's a fun weapon, it's a cool weapon, I really do like it. I wish they would buff this, make it have like the most damage per shot out of this, or maybe have it so it could have any sort of shotgun ammo in it when you find it. If they're going to keep it as a special weapon like this and, you know, bump it up to like medium or maybe even heavy armor pen, then I think it would actually be pretty cool. Like, again, it looks like a really cool gun. I really like the feel of this gun. It's just not very practical overall. And then the very last weapon is the entrenching tool, or the shovel. You can find this one too. You can dig with this one, which is kind of funny. You don't ever really need to do that though, because there's like samples that can be in the ground, but if you want to get them, you could just lay flat on the ground and then pick them up out of the ground. Other than that, it's just a melee weapon. And I think it used to be pretty identical to the combat hatchet, but since that one's gotten buffed, this one is just weaker than that. Where this one does 110 damage, has medium armor pen on it. I wouldn't really want to take the trench shovel over like a dedicated melee weapon if I'm doing that. These weapons are better than having no special weapons, so you should probably pick them up if you didn't bring a special weapon in and you just happen to find them. But like the shovel is not really that great. Again, pretty much all the dedicated melee weapons are going to be better than this. So just not really the greatest weapon. It would be kind of cool if this one got buffed. I suggested a buff of making it so you can mount this to the Constitution and just get a better bayonet that does more damage. Give me my shovel bayonet. I would like that. As you can see, most of the special weapons are generally pretty good. I do like a lot of them. Some of them are kind of better for certain jobs, but either way, they are very cool weapons. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.